Hey, Jameel, thank you so much for joining us and for agreeing to share your story with us. We really appreciate you taking the time to do so.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So, Jameel, where do you currently live? And is it a house or an apartment?
I currently live in Sacramento and I currently live in an apartment. I live with myself. I'll be moving in a couple of weeks to living with my sister and my mom.
Tell me more about yourself and your family.
I have three older sisters. By the time me and my brother were born, I two of them had already been close to being adult age and moving out. I am an actual twin, but we're fraternal, so there's none of that sister fun action. I can't put him in front of anybody and be like, that's still me. I am an English major and have a very fond love of writing and storytelling. I It surprises a lot of people because the work I do is very manual labor. So people often don't tend to be thinking that I have a deep appreciation for stories and that I've read multiple Greek mythologies and things like that. So it's always fun to like get to discuss people and then they're like, "Oh wow, you're very versed in literature." And it's like, "Yeah, it's what you spend years being an English major to do."
Tell me more about your current job. What is your current job and what are some of the things that you do?
I work at Kaiser Permanente and I have been there for just a little under 7 years. I currently make 29.15 an hour. My current job is ED security at a hospital. And what that entails is I spend my time walking around making sure patients and visitors are safe, and sometimes that includes being put on patient care watch, which is basically making sure that a patient who is sick or unwell doesn't accidentally hurt themselves or somebody else involved. A typical day for me is getting up, doing my typical morning routine, washing, cleaning, and all that, getting ready to head over to the work site, and it involved a small pit stop of taking time to mentally and emotionally prepare myself for the environment that I'm going into. Working at a hospital is very high intensity, and some days can be multiple back to back instances of just a lot of pressure. I've had situations where I've dealt with self harm, depression, anxiety, and I have to be able to be both there mentally and physically present, but also mentally and physically protected so I don't take too much in on myself as I go through it.
Thank you for everything that you're doing because it definitely is an extremely important job. Would you say that you like your job? Why or why not?
I would say I do like my job. It's for me, working in high intensity places has always been a better fit for me. I'm always better at doing multiple tasks and just sitting around and waiting for things to happen. I also feel like the people that are there, from the nurses to the doctors to even the cleaning staff and the people in the cafeteria, all come in there because they care about helping people. And even on the most stressful and painful days for all of us, it's the common cause of making sure everybody is safe that keeps us together and keeps us moving.
Are there any other challenges that you feel like you face at work?
Some of the challenges that I face at work are a constant evaluation of character, not necessarily directly related to any particular thing, but just that because of the fact that as security, my job is to make sure people aren't doing anything that might harm themselves or harm others. I have to balance between being a strong, decisive voice, telling people to stop doing things, while also maintaining that I'm here to help and that my core values remain the same. Sometimes that includes things like being a patient advocate for patients who appear scary to the nurses. And because of that anxiety that they have, I have to understand that what they're feeling as well as try to make it as comfortable as possible for the patient. And sometimes that kind of bleeds into us as staff too, where the nurses and the doctors might not see us as the people we are, and more as bodies there to keep them safe.
Wow. Would you say that this has a direct connection or impacts your personal life or even your family life in any way? Because that's a lot to take on, having to be dealing with a lot of those things.
Thankfully, I will say that the job hasn't affected my personal life and my family life too much, but that's through having the training and understanding to balance between the two. I try not to take my work home and I try not to take my home to work. And such situations, while they don't always go the way I want, and sometimes stress from other situations can impact what's going on, I try to keep the balance as much as possible because I understand how different the two worlds are. The union has been a strong voice for us when it comes to making sure that we as staff are considered safe. When I deal with the company and the hospital, there is often there's often a expectation that security is willing to take on all these challenges because we are there for that, and not understanding that as people who are working a job, we also want to feel safe and protected. And so oftentimes as a union, have to come in and we have to remind them that this isn't a bunch of people who you can throw to the wolves den and call it a day, and that we are employees, we are protected, we deserve rights, and those rights include being treated as individuals working the job and not as this lump of protective mass that people have.
Do you and even some of your coworkers, do you often feel like people don't see you, don't hear you, as if you're just invisible and you're just here just to do this job?
Personally, I often do feel that people don't see the job as more than these are people that protect us from situations. And there have been situations where I've personally had to take a nurse to the side and explain to them, hey, I'm here to protect you, but that doesn't give you a right to any kind of way you want. I'm also here to make sure the patient is feeling comfortable. So if you're coming in here and causing a problem or treating somebody a certain way, and I can see that you're doing that, then I'm going to tell you not to do that. And if you get mad at me, that's also part of my job. It's not necessarily to keep you safe, it's to enforce a set of rules that includes you guys showing the same amount of respect that you would want to be given to you. I have had a lot of experiences at the hospital as security, being both patient advocate as well as security and enforcing the rules. There have been instances where nurses might say or act a certain way that comes off as being dismissive to the patient or dismissive to security concerns about something because they're busy and they have a lot of patients they have to watch. And if a situation goes bad, sometimes that means that their work is interrupted. But for the sake of making sure everybody's safe and everybody is protected, I have to value making sure that things are being listened to and concerned. I've had plenty of times where nurses have given me pushback because I've had to tell them, hey, this patient's behavior is escalating and I can't watch two patients when this person is coming to the door and making threats, or hey, this person is really trying to get your attention and I understand that you're busy and it might just seem like a frivolous concern, but you still need to go and talk to them and let them know that you're trying to be present because they're not feeling that you're present, and that creates tension. And I will say that usually I do get a nice response from the nurses who are like, hey, I understand, let me go do something. Sometimes I have to deal with the pushback, and that's where having my supervisor and having the union having my back helps out because they can escalate it. They can say that I'm being rude or causing a problem. And if I had to defend my point, it becomes both an issue with just work and an issue with, representation from the union.
Are there people, I know you mentioned this as an example with the nurse, are there any other people who can make your job more difficult?
Unfortunately, yes. Working at a hospital, I have to make sure I'm considerate to the members, to all staffing. That includes nurses, doctors, and also the fact that as security, we're some of the lowest paid employees at the hospital. So sometimes, pay scales create a hierarchy, and people who feel I make more money than you tend to look at people who make less money as you're not to be respected. And I don't place value on how much money anybody makes for what I do. And as security, I have to always remind them that I'm not here because you pay me. I'm here because you understand that I'll protect you and I'll make sure everybody's safe. And sometimes making everybody safe means going against what you want to hear, because I'd rather be safe and you be mad at me than an incident occur and now everybody's looking at me like, why didn't I stop it? I would say it is very effective to have the union on your side. No matter what's going on, it's always better to deal with a situation as a collective than as an individual. And I have been very pro in telling my coworkers that we are stronger when we're together than when we're trying to just look at everything as what is it going to affect me and what's going to help me. I advocate strongly for being able to collectively come together and speak on any situation that we have. And there have been many situations where we have been able to exercise our voice because we have that understanding of the union and collective feel.
Are there any other people that have had a positive impact on your situation?
The hospital has a very strong and healthy environment, and that's from just not just the supervisors, but that's also higher management in nursing field and higher management in doctor area. There are often times where the people who are higher up, who understand that we're not trying to cause problems and do anything, will come in and be able to say, hey, I do see what their point is. And it goes back to the whole being treated as an individual and as a person and not just as the job. They You have to kind of create that for yourself, but when it's there, I do feel people respect you a lot when you're able to talk to them and they can express that you are you are an individual, and that is something that they need to consider when they're listening to what you're saying.
Have you ever had to turn to the safety net for assistance, whether that's CalFresh, CalWorks, Section 8?
I have used multiple benefits for multiple reasons. Before I was working at the current job I had to use CalFresh to be able to afford my groceries. I have had unemployment before, so I understand all these social benefits because they're the reason why I was able to stay up long enough to come back and find better work and find a way to keep myself stable. My experience with using social benefits has been a roller coaster. It's not as easy as people say it is, and it's not as hard as people say it is. Sometimes the trouble comes from being able to verify what you're trying to tell people. I've had situations where I've had my benefits cut off because I didn't provide them with a check stub that I randomly got one day that I barely remembered. I've had situations where I've had to explain to them what's going on with what I'm doing so that I can receive the unemployment that I'm supposed to be getting. I do think that the challenges that come with not being able to work outweigh a lot of the challenges that come with having work. And if I had to choose between being stuck on benefits and finding work and being stuck trying to survive with work, I would choose work every time because the benefits are there to help, but the roller coaster you go through to get to them oftentimes makes it almost not worth the effort to ask for it.
Wow, yeah, and that's so sad because that shouldn't be the case. Would you say, I know you mentioned that they're there to help. In what ways has it helped you or even your family?
Many of the benefits programs that we had have helped me be able to maintain just living in a situation that isn't like in my car or bumming it across multiple places. Um, I do think that I have a benefit because of my family, so that I have a strong net to work with, and I know many people don't. So I am grateful that the benefits were able to supplement what I had. But, and as them on their own, they do provide a good safety net, but it's also dependent on what you do because unemployment's only how much you work and how much you make during that time. So if you unfortunately work a lower paying job, you get lower unemployment benefits. CalFresh, thankfully, is much more lenient and is based on your situation. So if you need food stamps, you usually can get a higher benefit if you're in a situation where you have lower chances to use that. And being able to get food in any way, shape, and form is always a benefit.
Absolutely. Have you, I know you mentioned not too long ago about not having to live in your car. Has there ever been a situation throughout your life where you were staying in your car?
When I was younger, far, far younger, when I was a kid, my parents had a small situation that had us living in a hotel room for about a couple of weeks. Thankfully, my experience has never been to the point where I've had to worry about living on the streets in any way, shape, or form. Again, I feel like that's the benefit of having a family structure and things that are there to help me. And I'm very blessed that my life has been benefited with friends and family who have seen me and said, "Don't worry, I would never let that happen to you." And so I never experienced the fear of living on the streets, but working at the hospital, I interact with people who living on the street is just a regular thing for them. So I have a very deep understanding and a very deep respect for all the people that have to go through that struggle. And it makes me thankful every day where I know that that's a struggle that I can at least say I don't have to immediately fear.
Yes, I definitely hear you. Speaking of the people that you work with, are there any stories that you can share with me of just like challenges that they face if it's different than what you've already discussed?
There are many challenges that I have seen from people while working at the hospital. There has been substance abuse, mental health problems. There has been just the general treatment of you as a person coming into the hospital for the help for these situations. Have seen so much in the amount of time that I've worked there, and some of the stories that really impacted me have been ones where I've seen people who have been on the streets for years and they're facing deep medical issues, things like infections that they haven't been able to take care of. And while we're at the hospital trying to take care of them, we have to deal with the social anxieties that they have because living on the streets, they're very defensive, they're very afraid of being taken advantage of. Some people resort to drugs simply because it keeps them awake at night so that they're always on their guard. And I fear for how much they have to do. So when they get to us, I try my best to work in making the environment more peaceful for them. Sometimes that also means that I have to enforce hard rules because they're not used to the structure that they're being told to live in. And I see so many experiences that have given me a deeper appreciation of what I have in life and has made me a stronger advocate in voicing why these people deserve a lot more respect and a lot more help than we have currently been giving them. I have always been a strong advocate for people at the expense of myself because if I have the ability to be that shield, then I'm going to use it to the full advantage I have, even if it means putting myself at risk. I have been in many conflicts with my job, with the staff, with everybody over situations that I have been outspoken about saying this may not be the way we need to go. Sometimes a patient gets upset and does things that are hyper aggressive, and the nurses want them to be put down and take and get the situation cleared because they're acting up. And sometimes I have to be like, no, I'm not going to do that because this isn't a situation of them creating problems towards trying to hurt us. It's a situation of frustration, and we have to look at it as a situation of frustration. I've had situations where I've had to tell people that I know you don't want to have to be stuck working on a one-to-one patient and having to sit down and do this while we take care of it, but they're coming to the door, they're making threats, they're being physical. We have to look at it from multiple angles. I try my best to make sure everybody is taken care of and everything is as peaceful for everybody as possible, but part of being an advocate is advocating. I have faced what I feel has been some pushback when I end up doing things. That's included sometimes not getting favorable posts. Not that working at a hospital you're looking for a, somewhere where you're favored, but I have been long put on patients that are usually a bit more aggressive, maybe a little bit more angry, and I feel sometimes that it comes from them being like you're talking a lot and doing a lot of stuff, so here's something, and you'll have to solve it if it's a problem. And thankfully I feel that my personality, the way I've been raised, the things that I've seen make me strong enough that even in those situations I turn them into a positive. I've had many patients who prior to meeting me, they were up in there flipping tables, ready to fight everybody. And I've come in and they're like, hey, they're aggressive, they're angry, they're this, they're that. And I've come over and been able to be like, hey, man, let's work together. Let's fix the situation. Let's not make it a bad night for either of us. And it's worked out in my favor. I feel like that comes from the situations of all the stuff that I've dealt with, all the things that I've seen, and all the stuff, and being able to not look at being not looking at being an advocate as a bad thing, looking at it as just another situation to prove why it's better to show your advocacy strength than it is to sit down and make somebody else happy at the expense of somebody you're supposed to be advocating for.
That is very well said. Very well said. What would you say are some of the dreams that you have for your family?
My dreams for my family are stability and safety. If we get something better and brighter, I would love that for us, but I just like to know that my family is safe, that my family is able to live, that we can just have a very simple lifestyle of I'm not worried where my next meal is coming from. I'm not worried if I get an injury that's going to affect me for years to come. And I think that that's a very basic dream, but I feel like it's a very basic dream because it should be something that should be accomplishable. It's just something that we should be able to do.
So, as far as solutions, I know you discussed some of the issues that you're facing just throughout your job. What are some solutions that you want to see that will not only make you feel secure, but even like your family?
Some solutions that I think would really help not just me and my family, but just everybody is first off, a lot more general pay for people because it's expensive everywhere. Prices are raising up every place, and there's really nothing we're doing to being able to stop it. I just think that we have to rein in a lot of the greed out there that's going on. That's things like rent control. That's things like better pay for employees. That's things like, better access to health care, things that we shouldn't have to be stressed out about. I think that another solution would be better access to affordable travel and places to go. Like the bus system is terrible in almost every the the bus system is terrible everywhere in California. I've actually been out of state, and there are some systems that work way better than we have, and it just makes me think, why can't we just have on time buses and on time trains? Because we have to commute everywhere, so we need to be able to have various forms of commute available. And then I think the last thing I would say that would really just help make everything more comfortable is just, like I've already said, affordable rent, but also just places that are nice to live and affordable to live. Like, you can't really feel comfortable when you're stuffing a family into a small space. You can't really feel thriving when your closet is the size of a outhouse and your shower is literally connected right next to your toilet, and you have to like maneuver yourself to be able to get into one or the other. I just think the dignity of being able to say that you live in a comfortable area creates widespread change for everybody. There's a strong dignity in just saying, I live comfortably. Like, I don't live lavishly. I don't like drive fancy cars, but just saying, I get to go home every night. My bed is fine. My room looks great. I have a TV over here. I can go enjoy whatever superfluous fun things that I like to do when I want to do them. And those give you those give you strength. Those give you an ability to then present yourself to others in the world. And I've done it from getting jobs when I've had like no money and I was staying with my parents. I had to project that air of, even if you don't give me this, I'm comfortable because I'm living a good life. And I saw how that projection often was able to give me a job and get me somewhere. So when I finally had that actually as a actual thing, it really did a number on like my self confidence and my ability to feel like, hey, yeah, I achieved this. I am living comfortably. I am successful as I would like to feel. And now that I have that, when I go talk to somebody and explain something, it's from the ability of, I I don't have to feel worried and somebody's like, "Oh, you look like this, or you're like that," because it's like, well, my bills are paid, my apartment is covered, I get to go sit down and relax after all this and be in a space of my own design. And yeah, it's a dignity that we as people deserve, just to be able to say, I have a roof over my head and I can go home and go to sleep. I don't have to care what you feel about this. This conversation ends when I leave.
I love that. So oftentimes politicians speak on the importance and the need to connect with workers. Do you feel like they are doing a good job at that? Why or why not?
I feel that politicians are not doing enough for workers. I don't feel that they don't often believe everything they say, but I do feel that regardless of what you believe, your actions are what we all have to see. And oftentimes, the actions don't carry as strong of a message as the words do. I I've been I've been involved more deeply the last couple of years with politics than before, but I do feel like oftentimes politicians see workers as a backdrop to their character. That they see us as strong props to say that I am with you and that that's going to be what pushes me to get you guys to vote. But then when it comes time to like turn it around and pay back the people, what they give us oftentimes, in my opinion, feels a little bit like a slap on the face. This last election cycle, especially, I felt very strongly about how much we as a union were doing and how I felt like we should be asking for more in return for what we're doing. And if I can get a little bit more on a full personal side, one of my issues with this election cycle was I saw, as a black man, I saw a lot of situations where there was articles and discussions about why won't black men vote this way or why aren't black men doing this. And I was telling my union and my people, we have black men out here right now canvassing and going out and politicizing and trying to get people active. We should use that power to tell them you shouldn't be using that narrative when you see us doing this, because part of the deal for us doing it should be respect. We should be able to sit there and not have to worry that the platform that we're pushing or the people that we're promoting aren't out there running campaigns that feel like smear campaigns while you're doing something.
What do you recommend that politicians do so that they are better connecting with workers?
I implore politicians to just fight back against any of the statements that you hear about people or about workers. I implore them to stop letting conversations be dictated on the most unfair statements and platforming those unfair statements as general facts. I think that when you are coming in and if your platform is to be about the people, you have to tell them that you know the people. You have to sit there and talk to the people and actually listen to what they're saying. A lot of the problems we have are politicians that pay lip service, that see what the most popular thing that the people want is, and then they talk about it, they platform on it, they preach on it, and then when it comes time to follow through, they're kind of like, well, I don't really want to do that, and it's hard, and it creates mistrust and it creates a lot of people who don't want to get involved when you're sitting there and you're being told all these platforms and all these things that you're like, yeah, that would get me to vote, but are they actually going to do it? And that's what gets people to say no. I, there, the amount of stuff that I've heard politicians promise and seen us deliver has been so disheartening that there have been times where even I myself have just been like, do I even really want to vote? Is this really going to fix anything? What am I doing besides just giving my name to another number system and hoping that it just says okay? So, yeah, if you're going to be a politician and say you're about the people, be about the people. Everybody deserves to be respected and given a chance to feel the dignity of being treated as a person, regardless of what their circumstances are. And that I am thankful for having been in an environment that has allowed me to see that on multiple levels and be able to be that voice for people when they don't have it, because it's made me realize that we would be in a stronger, healthier space if we simply were able to remember to afford people the dignity of respect when they ask for it.
We do appreciate you taking the time to do this, and sharing your amazing story and keep being that advocate that you've been doing, like you've been being, because a lot of people need that. A lot of people are scared to speak up. So it's great that people have you there to help them out and help guide them along the way.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the time being able to answer the questions, and it was a fun time for me.